to
Oh, yeah,
chat
Kyle,
about,
before the
didn't you?
show, wanted to talk about the Supreme Court affirmative action decision.
I was
Oh,
watching
yeah.
CNN. I was watching CNN, and this guy, what's his name? I wanted to get it right. Kenny Zhu or something.
Okay.
His last name's XU. He was the I think he's Harvard alumni, and he's at he was a big proponent for this, and he's the one they interviewed for it. And the interviewer was a black lady, and he
A proponent. Did he want affirmative action to end or keep going?
He wanted it to end.
Okay.
Yeah, he was part of this movement. And he destroyed her. It was they had this debate that went on for like 3 minutes, and she would ask these questions that she'd been handed, and you would see his little mind work. He'd go, and then he'd find a different way to answer. He's like, actually, no, I don't think that at all. I don't think socioeconomic status should be taken into effect. That's a whole different thing. And he just break her down and destroy her. She had to end the conversation, get off the phone with him, and call an ally. and that guy, she was like, so you just heard the Kenny talk. What do you have to say? It's like, wait, why did you wait till Kenny left to bring your guy on? Like why don't you let Kenny?
She lost the debate so bad she left and called a friend.
Do you know what kind of uber Asian you have to be to get into Harvard?
Yeah, imagine.
Yeah,
you gotta be bright.
He's like, Asians aren't overrepresented, aren't overrepresented because of their skin color. It's because they study twice as much as white kids. He said it's a cultural thing. It was really fun to listen to that guy talk. So yeah, I guess affirmative action was stricken down in college admissions. Specifically, they mentioned Harvard and what's the one in North Carolina?
UNC.
Chapel Hill.
Yeah, UNC Chapel Hill. It's our most selective state school. It's a pretty good state school.
Damn, this really sucks though, because now instead of looking at the color of people's skin, they have to look at the content of their character.
That's a terrible thing, man.
You know, and it's funny, they specifically mention you can still look at the color of their skin, just not in the context that they used to. They used to be like, all right, we need, a bunch more black guys and fewer Asian guys, etc. Now they're like, if you overcame some situation, if you were like dealt a bad hand in life that's related to your skin color, then we can still look at that, but not just skin color. You need to show
just
me
a little workaround there.
Well, I think you'd like it if you read the decision. I think you'd be on the same team as Justice Roberts. Okay.
I read a part of it that said like, oh, you can still take into account everything we just said you couldn't.
That's not how I interpreted it. It was like skin color in the context of overcoming a tough situation was
like a specific incident kind of
thing. Yeah, like someone held this against you maybe and that you overcame it or whatever, but they can't do it as like the sort of the quota thing they used to, like, we've got too many Asians and not enough blacks.
They'll let you speak. What it said was they would let you speak about it, but they won't like use it to as a qualifier. They won't.
So they won't use it as a qualifier, but they're encouraging people to write, including their race.
They're not encouraging; they're allowing them. Just the interesting thing is they're allowing the legacy stuff to continue because that
was never going to stop, dude. Those are the richest people in the country. You think legacies are getting into fucking Yale because they're smart?
Sometimes.
You think remember? Do you think George W. Bush got into Yale because he's?
They said it's 5 times easier for them to get in than the average person.
Then yeah.
Here, can I read the part that I thought Taylor would like more than he seems to? Nothing in this opinion should be construed as prohibiting universities from considering an applicant's discussion of how race affected his or her life, be it through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise. But despite the dissent's assertion to the contrary, universities may not simply establish through essays or other means the regime he would hold unlawful today. I got a little mixed up towards the end there.
Yeah, what it seems like is it's like a layer of distance going, yes, we'll abide by this, but we're going to backlog something that effectively does something similar. That seems to be the goal, right?
Wait. Also, I'm wondering what the teeth are there. Where like if let's say like a more liberal leaning admissions board just decides to fucking do this anyway, like are they going to have to sue the school or something like that?
Probably.
You probably will have to sue the school. Yeah. The way I interpreted the decision is like, imagine you're a girl trying to get on the guy's football team. And you're like, man, everyone thought I would suck. But once they saw me kick, I overcame this. And they really wanted me as part of the team. Because it turns out, even though I'm a girl, I'm the best kicker on the football team. And I became one of the boys. That's a way that you can use your sex to talk about a thing that you overcame in kind of a positive light. And they would like stories like that if it was related to skin color, but not simply you need more black guys and I'm one of them. So invite me, lower the bar for me, but not for somebody else. Did I
understand.
lay it out right? Okay. Well,
yeah, I get it. I still, it seems like
you still think like there's a way
loophole
that could exist
it seems like just a back end thing where it's like, no, we're not going to go based on this, but we're going to go based on, we're going to take heavily into account the aspects of your race here and your sex here. And it's like, okay, well then that seems not really in the spirit of the decision, does it?
It's like Rick and Morty. It's like, well, that just sounds like,
slavery,
affirmative action with extra steps. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's hard to get this really right. I had this stupid lifeguard thing as a parallel. Before I became a lifeguard, there used to be an interview part. So it was like 80%, whatever, I don't know, 50% athletic competition and 50% interview. Mm-hmm. And what happened in practice was the people who were like the brass for this is a city job, were hiring locals. So like if you were, say, an Ocean City high school student, you might get a leg up over some guy who's coming down from Philadelphia. And they thought that was corrupt. So they got rid of the interview entirely. And to get this job, it was just a straight up athletic competition. And they'd hire you in the order that you finished. But that's a problem, too. For example, college kids who would do well in this competition were available from like May until August. Mm-hmm. And then high school kids who maybe didn't win athletically were available from June until September. So you got to have both. Otherwise, you have no fucking lifeguards in August when they go back to school and it's not Labor Day yet and the beaches are still busy. Yeah. So
I feel you. But regarding affirmative action, like it just seems like maybe I'm an idiot, but it seems like whoever's designing the trains and the roads and flying planes, like I want the best fucking guy designing roads. I want the absolute best guy being an engineer in charge of infrastructure. I want the best lady in charge of this, the best dude in charge of that. Like that stuff's important. Like
bringing it back around to the Titanic thing. Did you see that where they talked about affirmative action in that? Because the CEO was quoted as saying, like, our engineers aren't just a bunch of 50-year-old white guys, because that's not inspiring.
I did see that. Yeah, it's like, you fired the 50-year-old white guy who was like, you're mixing titanium and carbon.
You fired the, I don't know, experienced structural engineer that you may have needed.
And guess what? He's not a fucking sub expert because he's a 50-year-old white guy. He's a sub expert because he studied subs.
Where I was going with my thing, though, was that you don't want to fully stock a freshman class based on SAT scores and nothing else, because you might miss out on a real gem.
Why? Like if the goal is like an engineering school or something, why would you not take the most relevant information and use that to parse out who the most qualified people are?
What would you say a gem would be in that context, if not like a good student?
Yeah, I would imagine that there could be someone who's maybe not such a wilting flower, someone with some leadership skills, someone who's just fucking Captain America who got a 1570 on their SATs. You might pick him over some wilting flower egghead who got a 1600.
Why pick that guy over the smarter guy who's better at the job being measured?
Unless you need
I'm sorry, let's define what a wilting flower means.
This to me is someone who can't speak in front of other people, for example, somebody who doesn't have the same leadership skills, somebody who is just a follower.
I mean, we take debate as an elective into consideration. That's sort of the same thing. I get some. I don't know how you test that though, other than
the interview process, right?
Oh, well, I mean, they count the interview process. I'm sure that if you come in there and you're a stuttering mess, that they probably take that into effect. Not a literal stutter. They'd love that. We need some more. Oh, thank God.
Disabilities. Check that box. No, I guess all I'm saying is that there's something to be said for the interview and the life that they lived that maybe test scores don't fully capture.
Yeah, and I guess it depends on what you're doing. Though. Yeah, I care about that less too. Like I would rather I would rather the egghead weirdo who loves thinking about how trains work and the most efficient ways for them to move like that. That's the guy I want in charge of trains. Like the guy flying my plane, I don't want him. I want the guy who flies me to Chicago to get home from work and boot up Flight Simulator.
Yeah, but when you're going down, he's going to give a rousing speech, though.
Yeah, he's going to give. He's like, hey, we're all going to die, but I got a great attitude, and I'm going to give you the tight five. I've been practicing.
While I'm tucking my head between my knees, I'm thinking, you know what? This motherfucker's a leader.
Yeah, this guy
I still might be right though. Like you take the guy who's say ex-Marine, he might do better in that plane going down situation than someone who doesn't have the same capacity to handle stress and trauma.
Yeah, but
I don't know if I want a Marine
for every combat adult gentleman we put into a cockpit, somewhere there's a smart Asian kid who didn't get in because he didn't get shell shock. That's that's
true too.
That's what's on the other end.
There's winners and losers in this thing.
Oh, you're
right?
slick. You're a slick talking underachiever. I see that in you. You're kind of like me. Wait a minute. There's some actually smart kid who crossed all the fucking T's and dotted all the I's and studied hard every goddamn night. And you're gonna say no to him.
Sorry, you're white.
Slick
you
talking
can't have
Troy McClure over here.
See, Taylor, I'm with you on that actually. Like I think considering skin color it's
wrong.
It's wrong because there's winners and losers in this thing. And I like fairness and kindness are what I use to arrive at on decisions like this. My family was really Jackie's family, which I'm calling my own right now. There were a lot of civil servants in that family. Her mom worked in the prison, in the sheriff's department. Her father was a fireman, brother, cops in the family. Uncle was a cop, brother-in-law, tons of them. And what I know about New Jersey civil servants is there is affirmative action that's very strong. And it was just known. It sounds racist to say, but it's just flat out true. If you're a white guy, you got to score like 97% on your captain's test. And if you're a black guy, that number is like 82%.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how the scores break down.
There's that same scale for Harvard admissions.
I believe you.
Divided by race.
And it always seemed wrong. Her father never made captain because his scores weren't good enough for the white guy scores.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I was just like, God, it always seemed bad. Having said that, if they chose one guy who's captain over another guy, not based on skin color, but because one seems to get along with everyone while the other is universally hated, one can't stop being an asshole, but he scored higher on his captain's test.
Yeah, I mean,
there's more
sense.
to it.
But that's just a different dynamic of meritocracy, right?
Yes.
So like it's not decided on like nationality, skin tone, anything. It's just like that is one thing that is a leader aspect for this job that you're better at,
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. Like there's more to it than just test scores. But test scores are matter, and there shouldn't be skin color. That it seems like the height of getting away from racism is no longer considering race in these kind of decisions.
Yeah, because like stuff like that, like the story you just told, like that's where you could still build animosity, in a post-racism world,
Because
just
what
get the best dude. Just get the best
brought
guy.
Up is what the left's take on this is, and it's completely different. We'd be talking in circles right now because their point of view is, oh no, this rogue court is at it again. Now we have to find other ways to make our campuses diverse. Full stop. That is their entire interpretation of what has happened. Forget about all that fairness nonsense. It wasn't about being fair. It was always about creating diversity on campus.
Yeah,
that is above all else on the big pyramid of what this institution cares about. Diversity on campus is right at the top, and then maybe safety somewhere below that, and then educating people is like third or fourth. Like
barely
it really
there.
is.
Yeah.
I wonder what their side of it would be like if we had a good representative from college. Like, why is diversity on campus so important? Why is that more important than merit?
It shouldn't be. You should have all the best. Like the idea that like, I think a lot of people have an idea that like Harvard and Yale create geniuses. Like that when you go to Harvard, you emerge, and that if I went to Harvard, if they took me in and put me in their fucking whatever the most advanced program is, that I would be at the other end a genius and so smart. Like, no, Harvard is an elite institution because it traditionally chose elite, like the smartest of the smart people. It's not Harvard creating geniuses. It's geniuses created Harvard as an institution.
That was the best part of Kenny's interview. He was like, that's why consistently blacks are at the bottom 25% of the Harvard graduating class. And she's like, well, wait, but it was so great. He said it was unfair to put them in that position.
Yeah.
It was unfair to them.
So like if I can straw man out like what the left's argument would be on this,
hit us with it.
I would assume it would be something along the lines of, like institutional racism over the last 150 years is why they're not in positions to study as much, or they're, not in, secure enough homes, 2-parent homes that do, are more likely to be, academically excellent and things like that. And therefore, we've got to use these affirmative action techniques as a way of kind of bringing them back up with the top. But in reality, it's exactly what Kyle just said. We're like, okay, well, if you're putting somebody who's, whether it's their fault or not is a different question, but who's not qualified to be at that academic level, you're just setting them up for failure.
Yeah. Dude, I get really frustrated when I hear the argument that like these lower income people, they don't have the time to parent their children and help them study. Meanwhile, you got this other high income, mom's a doctor, dad's an astronaut. They got nothing but fucking free time. They're always there by the kitchen table, just doing their kids' homework for them.
No, honey, no, not like this. Yes, Commander, I'll be right with you.
Dude, the absolute delusion people have like about the amount of work like rich guys are doing day to day who aren't retired is crazy. Like the idea of a CEO like doing nothing all day is like, yeah, maybe at some giant multinational firm where he's really not doing much, but like average CEOs at a small company, they're working every day. Like they're stressed as shit.
Other than like trust fund babies or something like that. Like the people who are actually like, the CEOs, like the people that are actually doing the big work. It's like, oh, what justifies this salary? It's like the fact that nobody else can fucking do that but this guy.
Yeah, the fact that this guy created the business and like 80 people have jobs because of him.
And also that's probably CEO. Just a bit more than the counter offer from another company.
Exactly. Yes. It's market price or else they wouldn't be paying it.
They travel a ton at the CEO level too. They used to bring in Cisco CEO to like, I don't know, AT&T's making some big decision on which person's going to supply their routers, and the CEO would come and help with the sales team.
Let's continue to be a CEO and landlord defending podcast.
I love it.
It upsets so many people when you're like, dude, CEOs and landlords work so hard every day, and you just live there like a fucking bum.
They do though.
but the people that get upset at that are the kind of people that don't tip their landlords, and I don't trust them.
I tip my dude. You have to tip your landlord.
Oh, I tip my landlord all the time,
dude. Sometimes I used to rent. I used to tell my landlord, "Hey, I'm trying to grind, and without the motivation of a higher rent, I'm not going to. So I'm going to pay you twice as much this year, and I'm going to give you $5 million for that book you have that says how to make $5 million." So that's how I do.
They're land chads, first of all, and without them putting a roof over 3/4 of America and growing, thank God.
Tell them.
Dude, there's truth to it though. These people that saved up the down. Now, if you're born with money and you buy real estate, that's a different thing. But the people who like set aside enough money to buy extra houses and rent them out and make that happen, Jesus, like fucking respect that they did what you didn't, renter.
Yeah, renter.
I saw this.
I say that pejoratively.
That was so much.
Really
there was so much
renter with there was hard R. There was. It's renta to you. God damn. It's tenant. Tenant.
Dude, the amount of
look me in the eyes, tenant.
The amount of venom that dripped off of Woody's saying,
I'm here for inspection.
Woody's like, you fucking renter. Dude, the only thing Woody hates more than the renter is an overweight renter. You got fun money for food, you fat ass. Like, you can't build some equity.